My person.
No, no.
Okay, so they
We are excited today to recognize Global Awareness Month and also to share with you some of the incredible work that is being performed by our esteemed faculty on campus. We will have a panel discussion, as Dr. Hawkins noted, followed by Q&A. So I would first like to introduce our panel. Our first presenter will be Dr. Constance Gray, who is a professor of management and entrepreneurship within the College of Business. Dr. McGray will be followed by Dr. Donna Patterson, who is professor and chair of the Department of History, Political Science, Philosophy, and Director of African Studies. Next, we will have Dr. Ling Hong Chang, who is professor of History, Political Science, and Philosophy. And our cleanup panelist will be Dr. Veritas Alvarez, who is the Associate Dean of the College of Agriculture, Science, and Technology. If we can pull up the presentation, please. Next slide, please. So as we see here, Global Diversity Awareness Month. The focus and objective of the Awareness Month is to pay tribute to the diverse minds, beliefs held by all cultures around the world. Again, at Delaware State University, we are proud of the diversity within both our faculty, staff, and student population, and we celebrate these differences both academically in our curricular and our co-curricular activities. Again, our panelists will share some of the exciting work that we're currently doing in this space. Next slide, please. So, Delaware State University has launched the Global Institute for Equity, Inclusion, and Civil Rights. This Global Institute is designed to address just the topic of today, which is global awareness, along with providing solutions to some of the world's most challenging problems. The mission of the Institute, as noted here, is to network design, to develop and share proven pathways for transforming communities of color and closing the gap to an inclusive economy. And we think about our vision. We think about closing that gap to our inclusive economy across all cultures, across all walks of life. Next slide, please. So the Institute's focus is around three areas. First being equity, second being inclusion, and third being civil rights. Next slide, please. We have four centers that is driving the objective and mission of the Global Institute. The first is the Center for Neighborhood Revitalization and Research that is led by Dr. Dorothy Bill. The second is the Center for Health Disparities, led by Dr. Derek Scott. The third, Trauma Academy, is led by Dean Dr. Gwendolyn Scott Jones. And finally, our Center for Global Africa, led by Professor Ezra Ahura. Next slide, please. So now I would like to introduce our first panelist, Dr. Constance Gray. Thank you, Constance.
Okay. Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Dr. Carson. Good morning, everyone. So as my dean indicated, I'm Constance Gray. I'm a professor of management and entrepreneurship. And I'm originally from Ivory Coast. I studied in Europe before coming to the United States. I had the opportunity to travel through Latin America. In 2013, I was in Brazil, Argentina, and Chile, and in 2019 in Cuba. So based on this experience, I approached the dean last year, and I decided to start a global entrepreneurship education initiative. So we started this, and if you can move the slide, we have three areas that I would like to focus on my discussion today. One is a symposium that we organized on entrepreneurship education in Africa, and the symposium was held on September 17 and September 18 virtually. We organized it in collaboration with Johns Hopkins University, Morgan State, North Carolina Central, and a private institution called R&D Associates, and a startup university in Ivory Coast called Sika University. And I will talk about it. We had 70 people who attended virtually, who was sponsored by the College of Business. And the output we want to take out from this symposium is organizing proceedings, a book, and having YouTube posting. This to indicate that the College of Business is engaged in expanding entrepreneurship education outside the United States. And as a follow-up to this symposium, we also wrote a grant and received it. Next slide. Next slide, please. From the State Department, we got a grant of $44,000 to train virtually entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs in Uganda. So we start next month with the Global Entrepreneurship Week. We will launch this program. We will start it really effectively in late January next year, and we plan to be there. The team is composed of the people from the garage. The team is, I don't know if you are familiar with Troy Farmer and Lily Crawford, who is the director, he said, and Troy Farmer is the director of the garage. So this is what we did for entrepreneurship education in emerging and developing countries. The third portion is an initiative I started before the Global Entrepreneurship Initiative, next slide, which is to start a private university in Ivory Coast. And I call it Sika University. Sika is a name, is a word in my African language, which means gold. If something is precious, it's gold or it's precious, then you call it Sika. So the problem that we try to address in Ivory Coast and most African countries is when the students finish high school or college, they expect the government to give them a job or someone else to give them a job. But this is not sustainable. So what we did is use my knowledge here and focus on teaching entrepreneurship. So we started the program, entrepreneurship program, in this university last month, September 27th. And our mission is to create a new generation, as indicated here, of students or graduates who can create in the area of entrepreneurship, engineering, and technology. And we use a blended education format that we have a small contingent of faculty members teaching face-to-face, mostly English, so that the students will be proficient, and we have people from outside Ivory Coast. Some are located in England, Finland, and in the United States, each through Zoom and other platforms. So this is what I wanted to share with you. And also we have the students use MOOCs, but we haven't started the MOOCs program. But once they become proficient in English, then we will use it. And they can collaborate on some projects with students from Delaware State University. So this is what I wanted to really share with the audience today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gray. Next slide, please. Dr. Donna Patterson.
Hi, thank you. So today I'm going to talk a bit about my research, starting with my book project, Pharmacy in Senegal, going to Ebola, and if time permitting, a little bit on COVID. So my book, Pharmacy in Senegal, looks at the creation of medical professionals in French West Africa and post-colonial Senegal. I go in on pharmacists, but I look at midwives, doctors, and others. But one of the areas that I look at in my book actually looks at early epidemics and pandemics, and what the impact of these early epidemics and pandemics, how they impacted both colonial and post-colonial Senegal. Some of these epidemics and pandemics included yellow fever, smallpox, bubonic plague, but also the 1918 to 1919 influenza pandemic that went around the world, including to the U.S., and some of these others also touched the U.S. for instance, yellow fever came to New Orleans in the 19th and 20th centuries. Next slide, please. Thank you. So jumping really far, moving kind of from history to something closer to present, Ebola in West Africa. So I'm currently writing a book that's called Ebola, West Africa and the World. Ebola actually began in what is the current day Democratic Republic of the Congo, at the time Zaire, in 1976. So Ebola existed well before you may have learned about it, probably in 2014. And so in this book project, I start by looking at some of this history of Ebola's origins in what was Zaire, what that looked like, some of the early response, but also just identifying a new virus. And as you know, now we had something similar happen in 2020 when you find a new virus, well, in late 2019, and then have to sequence and identify this virus. And so I look at that and I jump really into 2014 through 2016, which is the height of this Ebola epidemic in West Africa. What is significant is there had never been an Ebola outbreak in West Africa before. It happened, as I said, in other parts of the continent, but never in West Africa. There'd been one case, just someone who got it from the lab, but no epidemic. So it was unprecedented in that it was the first, but also the location, and it hit a lot of major cities. So as someone who does this work both in global health, but also epidemics and pandemics, as soon as I learned about it in early spring 2014, I knew it was going to spread. I knew it was going to spread within the subregion, but also outside of the subregion. So going to the globe, so not just, COVID and influenza and these other things, but Ebola spreads, as you know, to the U.S., there's some cases in Europe, but definitely throughout the subregion and into some other countries. The three hardest hit countries were Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. And in this slide, the first slide to your left, to my left, shows you it's a treatment center, and that's in Guinea. So it's in Ebola treatment center in Guinea, West Africa. And then the second slide is a group of men who are washing their hands before they enter a bank. So they're taking safety precautions, not to try to prevent the spread of Ebola as they're going to do their business. Next slide. And here are two quick photos. The one to the left shows the case of Duncan, Thomas Duncan, who travels from Liberia through Brussels to the United States, and where the United States had its first case of Ebola in Dallas, Texas. And then the second photo that you see there is actually the photo at the airport in Paris, one of Paris's airports, and it's what to do if you travel from a country that has Ebola during the outbreak. And I actually had my own picture, but it was not showing up properly in the PowerPoint, and so I just found one online and put there so you can see a picture of what that poster looked like. And I think that poster is very important because it really underscores both that and the picture to your left, underscores how global health is interconnected. We don't live in a silo. And I think COVID, last slide, has really showed us that things are interconnected. And so when I started this Ebola project, I was talking to an editor about it, and in the last chapter of this book looks at emerging disease. So I talked about a number of diseases that are emerging that already existed, but also the potential for future diseases. And I started this project a few years ago, but as you can see, in 2020 and continuing 2021 going into 2022, we are in a global pandemic. Last slide. Thank you. And so this is our last slide, just a snippet of what we've seen over the past almost 2 years. Some of the masks doctors and other health professionals were using their masks, and also the front page last fall of Delaware State News talking about precautions going into the holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Powell, for that incredible work. Next, we have Dr. Chen.
So my project is an investigation of African American soldiers, the participation and contribution in World War II, basically in the Pacific, Southeast Asia Pacific region. they were building a highway to send American raw materials, land lease materials to China, America's wartime ally at that time. So out of 15,000 American soldiers, more than 9,000 of them are black soldiers. So they were the backbone. They are the major force of that big project. So it is a little known history in this country, but I think it is significant. So my research explores the transnational, transcontinental, and the global implications of African Americans, their contributions to the victory of World War II. I'm trying to answer some big questions how African American soldiers trying to make sense of their contribution, their sacrifice, their hardship, all of those things they experienced in a very remote global region, which historically had very little to do with African Americans. So, and their goal is the same as the major goal of most African American soldiers during the war, is WB, right, to have victory overseas against racism and domestically against racism. So they had an extra goal in that. Okay, so 2 lives for a mile means 2 lives of American soldiers sacrificed. They died for on average 1 mile length of the highway. So the highway, so they achieved that. African American soldiers and other American soldiers, they achieved this success, overcoming, very, very, very tough, difficult situations, like subtropical, natural and climate elements, high mountains, very thick forests, all types of diseases, insects, animals, and the Japanese attacks, Japanese snipers. So the sacrifice, the amount of the sacrifice was rather high. It should be more than the average of American sacrifice of American lives during World War II. So I want to thank Dr. Edwards, Dr. Osei, and Dr. Peterson, my college and the department leaders, for their very strong support in my application and the entire process. So I am going to write a book out of that history, and hopefully I will get the book published before 2025, the big anniversary of the victory of World War II. Okay, so I think that's something, what I should report. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shea. Next, we have Dr. Alvarez.
Good morning, colleagues, and indeed, I'm pleased to have the honor to join this esteemed panel. Unfortunately, it seems I don't have the photogenic stature to be allowed to be seen. My computer is not allowing me to have my video. This part of the discussion is dealing with the benefit of our international collaborative linkages to our students. And so if we go to the next slide, you will see that the purpose is really to broaden the perspective to global citizenship. And indeed, this panel is very fitting to highlight the importance of this. And the other key thing we are addressing is the need to increase minority participation in these international outreach, especially from the agriculture sector and our College of Ag Science and Technology and other colleges as well. And we indeed want to strengthen international awareness of our undergraduates, and especially the bottom piece there is to enable global collaboration, partnership, and also to open up their minds to the zonal knowledge. How many of our students are aware that our neighbors, be it Mexico, Canada, and so on, they're doing research on some of the same things we're doing here. So it's good for our students to be familiar with these things. If we go to the next slide, please. And so the specific objectives are to build international educational research and extension partnerships, which we're achieving. You'll see the slides a little later. And then to develop scholarly enrichment among faculty and students, and to link programs to strengthen capacity for students by allowing them to participate in some of our international activities out there. Next slide, please. So one of our big projects, and there are a number of others, but this was a macro and major one, is the West African ACCESS, we call it, but ACCESS stands for Analytical Support Services and Evaluation for Sustainable Systems in Agricultural Environment and Trade. And this program provides services for capacity development in monitoring and evaluation, information dissemination, and knowledge sharing for the USAID West Africa Regional Economic Growth Office portfolio. So this is significant. This project is involved, next slide please, in 21 West African countries that you can see on the map. Let's move to the next slide. Oh, and it's in partnership with USDA, the University of Rhode Island, USDA Foreign Affairs Service, sorry, and Delaware State University, and Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. So we were the collaborators in implementing this ACCESS program. Next slide, please. And one of the activities we have done is the West Africa Seed Program Assessment. And this is just one. Here we had a team that went out and looked at the strategic area of seed supply and services to especially to not just to small farmers, but mainly to them, and also the value chain around seed production and supply. And this is just one, but we also did the Trade Hub assessment for West Africa. And Dean Cashan was the co-lead on the implementation of that activity. We also did the energy assessment, as well as fertilizer use and cotton production. Next slide, please. And here, we had the great opportunity to mobilize our students to get a hands-on orientation on how these assessments are made. You know, what is involved. They need to see how the GIS method is applied, the survey, how to download the satellite images to monitor desertification and environmental changes. And the bottom left is showing that our students are not just joyriding out there. They actually go to the rural communities and participate in some of the activities that are happening there. Here, they were in one of the villages getting to understand how you make oil from oil palm. And the upper right is our group of students from our university partners, that is Delaware State, Florida A&M, UMES, and so on, participate in sending students to these missions in Costa Rica. And just in case, because of the travel difficulties these days, we have our boat ready to go across the seas. Next slide, please. So the experience and accomplishment. When we started these activities, we projected that we would reach a level of 30 students in a certain period of time. Let me assure you that we have quadrupled that. And even from 3 universities, now we have at least half of our HBCUs participating, land-grant HBCU, land-grant universities participating in this event. Next slide, please. And here, it has grown in popularity and strength. And this is a team from DSU and our ARD 1890 Foundation reviving and reinvigorating our MOU with Earth University in Costa Rica. At the same time, we also did it with Cartier, and then also we have functioning MOUs with the Case University in Jamaica as well. And not to mention, we still have effective MOUs with KNUST in Ghana. So in terms of next slide, please. In terms of the range of new opportunities that has grown out of this initiative, we now have our centers of excellence in global food security and defense. And under this center, we have programs for student success and workforce development. And we have programs for nutrition, health, and wellness. And all these bullets you see there, we already have funding to support students for capacity building and orientation. And the new orientation to international activities. And the new possibility right now that will be coming up is the one with the USAID collaboration with MSIs. And I'll say some more about this at some other time. And by this, I'd like to say thank you very much, the Nkashan and team.
Thank you, Dr. Alvarez. So as you see, this is just a few examples of how the university has leveraged its faculty, its students, and staff to bring both awareness and solutions. You know, on campus, we have a saying that we are students of problems, not disciplines, which essentially means to us that our requisite disciplines, be it economics or history or social sciences or agriculture, that is necessary, but it's not sufficient to solve the world's challenges. So we must work together. And at Delaware State University, we are committed and we're intentional around cross-disciplinary approaches to solving problems that are faced, not just locally, but also globally. So, Mr. McMillan, I'm gonna turn over to you if we have any questions from the audience.
Can the panelists talk about any opportunities for students to be involved in the programs in Global Institute?
Would any of our panelists like to take that, or may I start? You want me to start?
Yes, there are opportunities, but as you're aware, it's not possible to travel at this time. Nonetheless, we are encouraging students to participate in our international webinars so that they can see and hear from our partners out there. And as soon as situations improve for travel, we will resume our international experiential learning missions. Thank you.
This is not a question, but
actually, I would like to add something to that. So, you know, within the university, specifically the College of Business, we have several areas of engagement if your interest lies in both global awareness and global engagement. Specifically, one of our centers, the University Center for Economic Development and International Trade, is currently doing work abroad in the area of asset mapping. We've done a lot of work in the Virgin Islands in this instance, and we're continuously updating that work to provide insight and knowledge to the U.S. Virgin Islands and the British Virgin Islands as well regarding their assets and their economic development strategies. Secondly, I believe it would be prudent of our students with this similar interest to engage with the garage. You heard Dr. Bergray speak about our garage. Our garage within the College of Business is our entrepreneurial innovation and maker space. And why that's important is because what drives the philosophy that drives the garage, or the theme that drives the garage, is the 17 UN Sustainable Goals. So these goals, we challenge our students to, one, understand the goal, bring the awareness, and then help bring solutions to these challenges that are faced globally. So we have programming, and again, we encourage you to take part of that programming.
I want to jump into a bit. Our department too has taken students to Belize and Ghana and other places. We're actually looking to partner with people to expand faculty student research when it's easier to travel as the pandemic subsides a bit. But our faculty do work all over the globe. We just had a little snippet with Dr. Chang and I. My work is primarily, as you saw, on the African continent, but I do some work in the Caribbean and Europe. We have Dr. Robinson, who does work in Latin America, Dr. Osei, who does a lot of international work, Dr. Maru. So a lot of our faculty in our department do a lot of international work. And so there have been some opportunities, and we're looking for more in the future. Thank you.
I think this is an interesting question, which kind of ties to what Dr. Patterson was just saying. How do we proceed with international partnerships with the pandemic still in effect? Is there a way to pivot in order to keep growing?
I guess I'll start. Since you mentioned me, I'll be brief. I think there are some ways to pivot. For instance, last year we started a partnership with Mercy Corps, which is an international NGO for interns. And our department and our school was one of the founding partners with Mercy Corps. They are partnering with a number of HBCUs. Well, these discussions have been in place since 2018, 2019 or so. So the pandemic hits. And so they know that they wanted to have interns. And originally, interns could go anywhere that Mercy Corps serves, and that's all over the world. They have spots in the U.S., throughout the African continent, Europe, Asia, and all over the place. So at any rate, they had to pivot. So one of the things they did, our first intern actually interned with a organization, I believe they were based in Switzerland. And so it went virtual. And so that was the pivot in that way. So I think the virtual connection is one that we've been pivoting to, both with meetings and some of the internships and other opportunities. But hopefully things will get better in 2022 and we can have a greater sense of normalcy in traveling. Thank you.
I guess I would add to that statement. Thank you, Dr. Patterson. This is actually an extremely exciting time for the university. We will be hosting the European Union ambassadors on Monday, October 18th. And again, this is an incredible opportunity for the university to leverage its talent and resources for internships for our students, for faculty exchange. And again, I would encourage you to get involved. We can leave our contact information in order for you to engage with us, or we can put you in the right place. But I know the pandemic has slowed things down, but what it also has taught us is that the technology, the virtual platforms still allow us to exchange those ideas and those solutions that are needed around the world. So we could start right here on our campus with providing those solutions. And then when the opportunity presents ourselves, we can travel and get on the ground and touch the soil of our partners' land.
Absolutely, Dr. Casson. And I will add, we have an audience, but it's a small list, and we will have a link that will be going out likely this week. So for those of you who cannot attend in person, definitely log on.
And that was the last of our questions, Dr. Casson.
Good morning and welcome to Delaware State University. My name is Stephanie Hall and I'm a senior majoring in pre-veterinary science from Cheltenham, Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia. And I currently serve as the president of the Delaware State University chapter of Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences. Would you please silence your cell phones or put them on vibrate during the signing ceremony? Senator Chris Coons, Administrator Samantha Power, Board Chair Dr. Devonna Williams, Vice Chair John Ridgway, Trustee Dr. Debbie Harrington, the Administrative Council, Senior Administrators, Deans, our faculty, elected officials, both local and state, community leaders and members, alumni, friends of the university, my classmates and schoolmates, the outstanding students of Delaware State University, and the 12th president of Delaware State University, President Dr. Tony Allen. Welcome. Welcome to our Delaware State University. From May 15, 1891, Delaware College for Color Students, which is now Delaware State University, has been providing access and opportunity to thousands of students from diverse backgrounds, rooted in the belief and to learn, go forth to serve. With the ambition to be the most diverse, contemporary, historically Black college or university, and a place where it all matters, we are Delaware State University. By executive order, in 1961, President John F. Kennedy created the United States Agency for International Development to lead the U.S. government's international development and humanitarian efforts. From President Kennedy's inaugural speech that inspired children and adults about the importance of civic action and public service. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Now it brings us to today, Monday, October 18th, 2021, and the historic Memorandum of Understanding signing ceremony between Delaware State University and the United States Agency for International Development. As we connect the dots, we see that Delaware State University was established 130 years ago, and the USAID was created 6 years ago. And here we are today in 2021 for the signing of the MOU. Please join me in welcoming Senator Chris Coons to the podium.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for the example that you are here on Delaware State's campus of someone who's taking her skills and strength and ability and growing into a future leader of our country. Could we give Stephanie a round of applause? To President Allen, to Board Chair Devon Williams, to other members of the board and faculty, to all of you who are students here at Delaware State University. Let's give a round of applause and welcome USAID Administrator Samantha Powers. I have had the pleasure of knowing both Dr. Allen and Administrator Power for many years. And you're in for a treat in their remarks today because these are passionate, dedicated, capable global leaders in education and in finance, in the private sector, in the public sector. Dr. Allen and I have known each other for decades, since we were both involved in helping with the AmeriCorps program here in Delaware. I was running an AmeriCorps program for the I Have a Dream Foundation out of New York. He was launching the Public Allies program here in Delaware, and I was on the commission that oversaw AmeriCorps for the state of Delaware, something I'm hugely passionate about, something that we will dramatically expand through the Build Back Better bill that is about to get passed through the Senate of the United States. There will be thousands more young people in America. From his work on the Urban League to his work for then Senator Biden to his critical leadership here as your president, Dr. Allen is a great blessing. And Administrator Power is someone who runs one of the most important institutions of our government, one that if you were like me, you may have never heard of. When I was in college, I couldn't tell you what USAID was until my senior year when I happened to study under someone who went on to be the National Security Advisor for Bill Clinton. But it is global in reach, has thousands of Americans working in dozens of countries. I think there's missions in more than 80 countries, and they spend tens of billions of dollars helping bring into being a more just and sustainable and vibrant world. We are in a very difficult moment. We are facing the real existential risk of climate change. We're facing the greatest refugee crisis in decades, and we are seeing hunger and instability and violence grow around the world. And as we look inward as a nation, we've come to recognize in the last few years that the undone work of racial reconciliation, of addressing equity and justice and opportunity is urgent. And we are, I believe, fortunate to have a president committed to that proposition, a president, a vice president who see and engage and celebrate exactly what it is that Delaware State University brings to our nation and its future. And so we have a great opportunity here today to hear from these talented and capable leaders, to recognize and celebrate the partnership that they are announcing with this MOU. This is an opportunity for Administrator Power to hear about the research going on here, to meet with faculty and students, to visit and to learn more about everything going on here. My personal favorite, the Center for Global Africa, which we were just talking about before we came out here. One of the things I was active on when President Obama was in the White House, and I was on the Foreign Relations Committee, was a bill that was all about food insecurity. In 2016, the Global Food Security Act was passed by the Senate and signed into law by the president, in no small part because of a role that Senator Isaacson and Senator Casey played and that I helped contribute to. And next week is Feed the Future Week. One of President Obama's legacies is the Feed the Future initiative, which is making a difference all over the world and in particular on the continent of Africa. From when I was an undergraduate at the University of Nairobi in Kenya, first semester, which changed my life, to today, partnerships between agricultural research institutions in the United States, like Delaware State University, and stations around the continent that are trying to develop hybrids and new techniques to do outreach and engagement holds huge promise for the future. This is the opportunity that is embedded in the MOU about to be signed by these two great leaders. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of celebrating this. And I hope one of the things that will come out of this is that USAID will diversify its talent pool, its recruitment pipeline, and that you will see a career, if not at least an internship or a fellowship at USAID, as an exciting and important part of your personal future, as well as a partnership with USAID being an exciting and important part of this institution's future. Thank you. It's an honor to be with you, and I look forward to the signing of this MOU.
Administrator Samantha Power was sworn into office as the 19th Administrator of USAID on May 3rd, 2021. Administrator Power leads the world's premier international development agency and its global staff of over 10,000 people focused on helping the United States respond to 4 interconnected challenges: the COVID-19 pandemic and the development gains it has imperiled, climate change, conflict and humanitarian crises, and democratic backsliding. Administrator Power will also ensure that the USAID enhances its long-standing leadership in other challenge areas, including food security, education, women empowerment, and global health. Additionally, Power is the first USAID administrator to be a member of the National Security Council, where she will ensure that the development plays a critical role in America's responses to a range of economic, humanitarian, and geopolitical issues. Please welcome Administrator Samantha Power to the podium.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I could not be more excited to be here. I could not be more grateful to Stephanie for presiding over this incredibly important occasion. Thank you, Senator Coons, for your warm introduction and also for your presence here. As one of USAID and Delaware State's foremost supporters in Congress, I'm not surprised you're here. But I gather there's some things going on in Washington. So kind of some important negotiations that you're in the thick of. And so you being here is just what you do all the time, which is you vote with your feet. You show your values with your presence. And this has been such a priority for you. And again, your presence is just reflective of that. You have been a lifelong champion of HBCUs in Congress, successfully working to grant them permanent federal funding, helping make them more affordable and more accessible, and now fighting to make a generational investment in the facilities and infrastructure at schools like Delaware State so they can continue to lead successful research partnerships like the one that we are ushering in here today. Perhaps most impressively in today's climate, you have been able to bring Democrats and Republicans together to do all this, fostering rare bipartisan agreement that America must address historic inequities in funding and opportunity for our nation's historically Black colleges. I'd also like to thank President Allen, Vice President Boyle, and the members of the Delaware State University Board of Trustees for the work that they did to make today's event a reality. President Allen's leadership, in particular, has helped transform this institution into a top-flight center for learning and state-of-the-art research. And yet, he still somehow finds time to plan presidential inaugurations, to lead President Biden's HBCU initiative. He also had one of the tougher jobs in Washington in the early part of his career. You all know what that was? He was Joe Biden's speechwriter. And I am hereby applying one of the great life lessons that I learned a long time ago, which is always speak before the professional speechwriter, never after the professional speechwriter. Before I get into the substance of my remarks, I also want to thank Charisse Adamson from USAID, who more than anyone at our agency made this partnership possible. And it's a reminder of the good that a single individual can do when they believe in something and they are relentless and they never give up. Charisse is retiring at the end of this month, but in her last great gift to USAID, she has helped us write a new chapter of partnership between USAID and this institution, one of this nation's premier universities. The father of the land-grant universities, Senator Justin Smith Morrill, said he introduced the bill to establish these schools because he wanted to put every state upon a sure and perpetual foundation. A sure and perpetual foundation. Prior to the Civil War, as you all know, education in the United States had been reserved for elites. It trained wealthy white students in Latin and Greek. But Morrill and President Lincoln saw a new dawn emerging, an era where America's prosperity would only be unlocked if the nation harnessed the potential of its agriculture and if the nation made education available for far more people. Universities needed to foster a new body of knowledge in technical disciplines like agriculture and engineering. And crucially, in Morrill's words, they needed to be accessible to all, especially to the sons of toil, as he put it. It would take a bloody civil war and decades of legislative battling until the US would fulfill that promise and create universities like this one, like Delaware State, universities that were accessible to Black students. And it would take decades longer until women had equal access to technical studies. But America's land-grant university colleges and universities ultimately transformed this country into an economic powerhouse. And it set our nation on a foundation of perpetual prosperity, even as we obviously continue to grapple with our legacies of racism, gender discrimination, and inequality. Today, the world is at the dawn of another new age, with the twin calamities that Senator Coons spoke about, COVID-19 and climate change, with those calamities devastating communities and shuttering economies all around the world. It could be an age of peril, as tens of millions of people are being pushed into a state of extreme poverty and hunger. But it can also be a new age of promise, where fresh innovations and a new spirit of global cooperation usher in that more equitable and prosperous future for the sons and daughters of toil all around the world. Just as President Biden is donating over 1 billion American-made mRNA vaccines to countries around the world to try to help end the COVID-19 pandemic, we can harness the expertise of American land-grant universities to help smallholder farmers stave off climate change, feed their families, and boost their national economies. We know that growth in agriculture is up to 4 times more effective at reducing extreme poverty in low-income countries than growth in any other sector. 4 times more powerful. It reduces inequality, it boosts the economic standing of women and girls, and it lowers food prices for everyone. What could be a better investment? But to deliver on that potential, the US government and USAID specifically have to do a better job tapping into the brilliance of American research institutions, especially our nation's historically Black colleges and universities. Truthfully, and Senator Coons and now President Allen know that I am nothing if not truthful and blunt, but when it comes to engaging our nation's HBCUs, USAID is falling short. A 2020 study we commissioned to look at how USAID and HBCUs showed how they interacted showed that we have distressingly little knowledge about the structure, capacity, and research expertise that HBCUs have to offer. Worse, when we commissioned the study, we learned we weren't even trying to remedy that lack of familiarity. We weren't reaching out to historical Black schools, and as a result, students and faculty at these institutions had limited to no knowledge of USAID and our mission to build a free, more peaceful, more prosperous world. And I can tell you, like Senator Coons, I went to public high school in Atlanta, Georgia, never heard of USAID, would not have heard of USAID. None of my classmates, no matter their backgrounds, would have ever heard of USAID. If we are going to go to places that have not been accessed traditionally, we're going to have to bring intentionality to that. We're going to have to work at it. And that comes especially to recruiting a more diverse workforce. So students and faculty up to this point really haven't been joining our ranks, haven't been competing for our grants or sharing your expertise, not because you might have been unwilling, but because we did not extend our hand to you. Our logo at USAID is actually a handshake, one hand embracing another, meant to represent our nation's embrace of those in need around the world. That same gesture is conveyed in USAID's motto, which is from the American people. That's what we brand, what we provide in the realm of food aid or seed inputs around the world, from the American people. But unless we commit ourselves to tapping into the wisdom, the intellect, and the generosity of spirit of all the American people, we're not going to live up to our mission. That's clear. Today's MOU between Delaware State and USAID represents an important first step in changing our approach to partnership. As part of this agreement, we are committing to hosting important conversations with Delaware State on topics of mutual interest, like climate change adaptation, fighting malnutrition, and strengthening water security. We also pledge to reach out to DSU's faculty and staff to promote the fellowship opportunities we offer for both professors and students. We are hoping to boost recruitment at this campus to start off. We're going to work together to shape 2 separate courses on international development so that students here can gain broader exposure to the technical challenges that still plague our world. And I don't know, Senator, if I'm overstepping, but I think you and I would be happy to be guest speakers, maybe, at such inaugural courses. Should you be interested after the event? Now, Delaware State University, I want to be really clear about this. You don't need USAID's help to make a difference on the global stage. You already have dozens of international partnerships with global institutions. Your Center for Global Africa is harnessing the expertise of the African diaspora to benefit African nations. You're already leading in areas of research like water quality and microbiology, 2 of the labs that I'm going to visit today, and you're already developing strains of drought-resistant staples like cassava. Your students inherently understand that if we fail to address threats like COVID-19 and climate change abroad, their devastating effects will continue to fall disproportionately on communities of color here in the United States. And that, as the strongest, most successful nation in the world, your folks already know that America has a responsibility to fight inequality and injustice abroad. At the same time, we fight inequality and injustice right here at home. After all, it was America's universities, Delaware State among them, that helped awaken our conscience to the horrors of apartheid, the need for global debt relief, and the importance of fighting HIV/AIDS abroad. That tradition is already well embedded here. But even though you may not need our help, we need yours. Your expertise, your cutting-edge research, your willingness to anchor our engagement with other historically Black land-grant universities. That is going to strengthen the good that USAID and the United States as a whole does out there in the world. And it helps usher in this new age of promise. So in closing, I just want to thank you, Delaware State University, for embracing our extended hand. And with that, let me turn it back to somebody who I hope has been convinced by my recruiting pitch and might give us a look when it comes to deciding on her career path, Stephanie. And thank you so much for having me here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Administrator Powers. Please welcome Delaware State University's president, Dr. Tony Allen, to the podium.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What a great time to be at Delaware State University. I think what Senator Coons and Administrator Power don't know is today is the start of homecoming. So it is really a magnificent, magnificent opportunity for us to do this way. University family, there's not often that we get a United States Senator, a former UN ambassador, and the head of USAID at our little campus. We've come a long way from 130 years ago. I want to say to Senator Coons in particular, you don't know how much you mean to us. Senator Coons is not just a personal friend to me, he is an ardent supporter of Delaware State University, and by extension, historically Black colleges and universities across the country. He is the bipartisan co-chair of the caucus on HBCUs in the United States Senate. He is one of the architects of the Future Act that provided permanent funding for HBCUs. He bleeds red and Columbia blue. And I can tell you there are very few weeks that go by where we don't touch base, where he is asking about things that are happening at Delaware State University and how we can get better and how he can help us. Thank you very much for all you do. To my board, who is here, the great Dr. Devonna Williams, Chair of our Board of Trustees, would you stand? Vice Chair of our Board of Trustees, class of 1975, when he used to have an afro. John Ridgway, would you stand, sir? Retired Army Colonel, and a woman that does not play. Dr. Debbie Harrington, would you stand? And Jocelyn Stewart, a dear friend of mine who was a retired bank executive and a philanthropist extraordinaire, would you stand for us as well? Administrator Power, I just wanted to call them out because my Board of Trustees, our faculty, staff, and students in administration, we're in this together. We know how important this is for you to be here, for USAID to be in the place with us, and for our students to benefit in kind. My friends, this is a big deal. And it was really started, you heard about Sharice from USAID. I call her the Tony Boyle of USAID, because Tony Boyle and her started cooking this up about 1.5 years ago. And we weren't sure what was going to happen, but Tony reported to me every week, Prez, something's going to happen. I promise you, something's going to happen. And I'm proud to say today, on this day, that we are the first HBCU in the 61-year history of USAID to sign a memorandum of understanding with that incredible. Louise Winstead, Mike Casson, Nick Alvarez, Dalrymple Marsh, thank you also for all that you've done. Today, it's just, it's hard to describe what's happening here. It's one of those days, it could be historical for us if we work together. As a university president, I always have a heart for the special moments that expose our students. And I can tell you, just about 5 minutes I spent with Administrator Power, she's special. She was talking to me about what she might say in the green room, Senator Coons and I, and she cursed. I said, but we don't want you to curse in your remarks, man. But it was because she was so passionate about Black and brown people across the world, passionate about those things she's mentioned, like climate change and food insecurity and water insecurity. She's a scholar and teacher, a Pulitzer Prize winning author, a groundbreaking humanitarian, and a government leader. I think you all know that today, this morning, Colin Powell passed away. And Colin Powell was not a friend of mine, but I had the opportunity to talk to him at the presidential inauguration. I was telling Senator Coons that Sarah and I sat right next to him during the inauguration. He gave us marital advice for about 4 hours. Good advice, I think. I would say that he would be very proud of this moment and Administrator Power and her team's great leadership. Thank you for being here. We're not an unlikely partner, though. That's very important for you all to hear. Just over a decade ago, the late William B. DeLauder, retired president of Delaware State University, chaired a working group for the Board of International Food and Agricultural Development. That group made recommendations to USAID regarding potential relationships with HBCUs. They identified 7 specific strengths of those institutions. And what's important about that are these 2 areas they thought were very important. HBCUs like Delaware State have already established a strong network of relationships overseas among students and faculty. And 2, we have considerable agriculture-related technical expertise and know how to work with low-income, dispersed, and rural indigenous communities. Think about that. We already do the work. I don't know a faculty, staff, or student at Delaware State University or any other HBCU in the country that wouldn't say, we don't already do the work. But we always don't get the light. This is a moment to get the light, to lift up in a significant way that work, and recognize that if you want to invest in an institution committed to bringing folks from all different backgrounds together, getting them across the finish line so they can be better citizens and exceptional professionals in their discipline, there is not a better investment than in HBCUs. I think we have just learned that over the last 18 months. And I don't think it's lost on any agency in the federal government. But I can tell you that USAID has shown up in a big, big way. You all know that we have a Global Institute for Equity, Inclusion, and Civil Rights. My view is that this will be a significant lift for that institute. We've already raised $4 million for that effort. We're looking for a director and have significant centers. You've heard about the Center for Global Africa. I'm not sure if Ezra Rowan is here today. Professor Rowan, are you here? Stand up for a second. His center is one of those institutions in our Global Institute that could get lifted up significantly. He's already working with the African Union. He's already working with the African peer review mechanism. But we need more light. And we need to be bringing our intellectual capital to bear on the biggest challenges of the world. So today, as we sign this MOU, remember our vision, the most diverse, contemporary HBCU in America. In order for us to do that, we got to do the little things and the big things well. Today is a big, big moment. Students recognize that the head of a $30 billion organization responsible for 10,000 people just offered you all a job. Faculty recognize at the head of that organization, a former UN ambassador, said they need to lift up your research, your scholarship around the world. Recognize that it's our time, our moment, And we're not just standing here for Delaware State University, but for every historically Black college and university across this country. That's what it means to be the most diverse contemporary HBCU in the country. And we couldn't be more excited. Thank you all for coming.
Again, thank you, Senator Coons, Administrator Power, and President Allen. At this time, Ms. Erin White, a senior majoring in pre-veterinary science from Baltimore, Maryland, who serves as the Vice President of the Delaware State University Chapter of Manners, will join at the table to assist for the signing of the MOU. We will now have the signing of the MOU.
Could we just have our Board of Trustees join us on stage for a quick picture?
Thanks.
We move over by the chair to the like. Let's move over.
I think they want to move over.
Yes, the projections on your faces.
Great.
I'm calling.
Okay, and the final thing before we leave, we have a gift for Administrator Power. He would come over here and join us. Vice Chair Ridgway is our 130th anniversary chairman. And we have a little motto, 3, 3, and 7. 1891, 3 teachers, 3 buildings, and 7 students. And this is our first building.
Oh, wow.
And we want to make sure that you hang this up in your office as you continue to hire so many Delaware State University.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between Delaware State University and the United States Agency for International Development. Those who are part of the media, Administrator Power and President Allen will be taking a few questions at the front of the building to your left. To everyone else, thank you for sharing in this historic event at Delaware State University. Please have a fantastic Hornets Day, and thank you for attending. Yes, sir. Oh my God.